Across the void, where nebulae weep and stars are born and die in cosmic breaths, there was a terror known as Empress Zilla. Her rage wasn't just a feeling, it was a physical force, a shockwave of pure destruction that could fracture planets and extinguish suns. Her fleet, the Obsidian Armada, was merely an extension of her fury, a shadow cast across galaxies. For millennia, civilizations trembled at her name, offering tributes, sacrificing worlds, all in a desperate attempt to appease the unappeasable. Her heart, they whispered, was a black hole, consuming all light and warmth. But what fuels such an all-consuming fire? Was she born of chaos, a cosmic anomaly of pure malevolence? No, the truth, as it often is, was far more tragic. Zillera was the last of her kind, the sole survivor of a planetary cataclysm that she had watched unfold, helpless as a child. The echoes of her people's screams were the lullabies of her youth, the foundation of her empire built on pain. Her rage was a shield, a fortress of thorns constructed around a shattered, lonely heart. Every conquered world was a failed attempt to silence the ghosts of her past. Every shattered star was a monument to her unending grief. She believed that if the universe feared her enough, it could never hurt her again. Her path of destruction inevitably led her to a small, unassuming blue-green planet in a quiet, spiral arm of the Milky Way, Earth. To Zillera, it was just another speck of dust to be swept away, another defiant light to be snuffed out. Her armada blotted out the sun, casting the world into an eerie twilight. Humanity's weapons were like children's toys against her might. Panic erupted. Cities fell silent. It was the end, and everyone knew it. As Empress Zillera prepared to deliver the final world-breaking command from the bridge of her flagship, the Void Reaper, a single, unauthorized transmission cut through the silence. It wasn't a plea for mercy, not a threat of retaliation, but something different. It was a single human, a linguist, an exobiologist named Dr. Aris Thorne. He had spent his life dreaming of first contact, not like this, but he refused to let humanity's final message be one of fear. On the main view screen of the most terrifying warship in the galaxy, Aris Thorne's face appeared. He wasn't in a military bunker or a presidential office. He was in a small, cluttered observatory, surrounded by books and star charts. He looked calm, but his eyes held a profound sadness. He spoke, his voice translated by the ship's computers, not with defiance, but with an unnerving gentleness. He didn't beg for his world. He didn't list humanity's achievements or plead for its potential. Instead, he started telling a story. It was an old story from one of Earth's ancient cultures about a phoenix, a mythical bird that lives for 1,000 years, only to be consumed by fire and reborn from its own ashes. He spoke of grief, of loss, and the terrible, beautiful struggle of finding the strength to rise again. He wasn't talking about humanity. He was talking about her. Zillera's generals were aghast. How dare this insignificant creature speak to the Empress with such familiarity? They moved to cut the transmission, to silence him forever. But Zillera, for the first time in centuries, held up a hand. She was frozen, her expression unreadable behind her regal facade. The story of the phoenix resonated in the cold, hollow chambers of her heart. The fire, the ashes, the desperate hope for rebirth, Aris continued. He then showed her images, not of weapons or armies, but of simple, human things. A child taking their first steps and falling, only to be lifted up by a parent's gentle hands. He showed her firefighters rushing into a burning building to save a stranger. He showed her a community rebuilding after a devastating storm, hands of all colors working together. He showed her a lone musician playing a violin in a war-torn city, a melody of hope against a backdrop of despair. He was showing her compassion, resilience, empathy, the very things she had tried to burn out of herself, the things she believed made one weak. He wasn't just showing her what humanity was. He was reminding her of what her own people had been before the end. He was showing her that pain didn't have to be an engine of destruction. It could be a catalyst for connection. Finally, Eris looked directly into the camera, his gaze piercing through the screen, across the light years and straight into Xylora's soul. "We cannot comprehend the depth of your loss," he said softly, his voice thick with an emotion she hadn't heard directed at her in eons' sincerity. "Your pain must be like a star collapsing in on itself. But you are not the only one in this universe who has suffered. We all carry our ghosts. We all have our ashes. The question is what we choose to build from them." He then did something no one in the galaxy would have dared. He offered her a gift, not a planet or a treasure, but a simple piece of human art, a digital composition of a song. It was a lullaby, a soft, gentle melody, filled with a quiet melancholy, but underpinned by a current of unwavering hope. It was a song for a lost child, a song for a lonely empress. On the bridge of the Void Reaper, a silence deeper than space itself descended. The assembled warriors of the Obsidian Armada watched in stunned disbelief as a single, iridescent tear traced a path down the cheek of their empress. It was the first tear she had shed since her world had died. It wasn't a tear of weakness, but of release, a crack in the dam of her rage. In that one moment, Eris Thorn's simple act of radical empathy did what no fleet ever could. It didn't defeat the Empress. It reached the person buried underneath. He saw not a monster, but a soul in agony, and he offered not a sword, but a hand. He showed her that true strength wasn't in the power to destroy, but in the courage to feel, to connect, and to heal. The rage that had terrorized the galaxy wasn't extinguished by a superweapon. It was soothed by a lullaby. It was calmed by the quiet understanding of a single human who chose compassion over fear. Xylora did not immediately become a benevolent ruler, and the scars of the galaxy would take generations to fade. But on that day, the fire of her rage subsided, leaving not a cold, empty void, but the warm, fertile ground of ashes, from which something new, something better, might just have a chance to grow. The universe had been saved, not by an army, but by a story and a song. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If you enjoyed this story, remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the cosmos of imagination. Until next time, stay curious.